EVS7000. I just wanted to show you guys this wonderful old machine that Sony made. This is a Hi-8 deck. Look at that. The control panel pops out on this thing. This was a real high-end deck. Featured things like digital PCM audio, Hi-8 picture, time-based corrector. Here's the mechanism inside. I need to transfer some tapes over to DVD. I have some tapes that have got a PCM soundtrack on it, and I need to get that music. Just music I've recorded off the radio, but I dubbed it in when I was I think I was down in the States at the time. And it's just music I recorded off the radio, but it's some stuff that I wanted to keep from some of the air logs that I made off of some of the commercial stations, and I dubbed them in on my camera after I had finished recording on the tape. And this is the only machine that can play it back because it had the secondary soundtrack. So we're going to load this tape up here in this machine. The problem with this machine is, and this is a big problem with all these EVS series, is this gear, this take-up spool down here. The gear, the teeth on that gear crack. I don't know if you can see it or not, because it certainly has failed on this one. I can't go into fast forward or anything. I can play a tape, but I can't fast forward or it'll eat the tape. I can rewind and I can play, I can't fast forward. Very common problem on these machines, and I've already changed this twice. This is the third time that this gear has cracked. The problem is the part's no longer available, so I'm kind of at the this says PCM audio. Was recorded from a radio station called The Wave, which was a new age station down in LA back in the 1990s. So I want to kind of get the music that I've got on this tape. I can use my other Hi-8 player to get the video portion off it, but the audio portion I have to use this machine here, and I'm going to try and do it while this machine actually still works, because I've been trying for about a year to get that part, and I've been told that the part is no longer available, and every supplier I've tried does not carry it. So to give you an idea what happens, if I go into play mode, the unit will play, but if I try to fast forward the tape or anything, watch what happens. This is search, I believe. But if I try to go into full fast forward, watch what's going to happen to this tape. That's a problem. So that's what happens when that gear cracks. And unfortunately, it was a very common problem on these machines. All these EVS, the EVS2000, the EVS5000, the EVS7000, all these machines, the same part broke. And if you've got one and it's eating tapes on fast forward, there's where your problem is. The parts are not available. Perhaps we can get one 3D printed. I think that's probably the only chance that we're going to get a replacement hub, is to actually have one printed on a 3D printer. But that's easier said than done, because this has also got a rotation sensor on it too, so 3D printing that part is going to prove to be a little more difficult. So basically what I did with this is I had a recording on this tape, and the tape had already been recorded. And when I was staying down in LA, this is going back into the late 80s, early 90s, I had my CCD V5000 camera with me at the time, which had the ability to dub audio hi-fi PCM. So when I was sitting back at my motel listening to the radio, I thought, gee, this is pretty good stuff that I'm listening to, because back home we never had any radio stations that played it. This was recorded off the Wave. So I plugged the line outputs from my tuner in my car stereo, into my camera, and I rewound the tape, and I put it in dub mode, and I dubbed, an hour and a half or 2 hours of music. So now I'm just in the process of taking that music. I'm going to dump it down onto my DAT deck here, so that I've got it off of this videotape. On the front controls here, we have our full front panel control, digital noise reduction, input select, menu for going through the different menus, execute key, stop, play, record, fast forward, rewind, etc. It's also got time code writing, and it's got audio dubbing, which is something that you didn't see very often on 8mm decks. The thing with the 8mm and the Hi-8 standard was, instead of using all 8mm tape for that matter, instead of using the standard 300 or 180 degree wrap of the drum, they used a 200 and I think it was 220 or 210 or 220 degree wrap. So that extra tape wrap, so the tape guides are like on the side here, that extra tape wrap means that when the video head starts writing, which would be here, let me just move the camera so you can see this. And it's probably better to talk about conventional analog video such as VHS and beta, where the tape is wrapped 180 degrees. So on a 180 degree wrap, when one head is starting its trace, the other head on the other side is just finishing. So as the one field finishes its write, the next field starts. But on 8mm, it's more than 180 degree wrap. It's again, it was either 210 or 220, I believe. I'd have to go back and look at my manuals on it, but never really paid that much attention to it. But essentially, your video frame starts when your head is at the beginning of the point where the tape enters the drum assembly. So it would be over here, like where the screwdriver is pointed. And as you can see, the video frame would end here. But the tape wrap doesn't end there. The tape wrap actually ends up here. So you've got this extra space from there to there. If you're looking at the head itself, if these black connectors would represent the heads, they're off a little bit, but there's the head there. You can see the head. And the head would continue writing until it gets, that's actually probably the flying erase head. One of these is the flying, that would be the flying erase head that you see there. And that's video head 1, and the other one's video head 2. The two heads are 180 degrees apart. But as you can see, when the other head over here, this red one, starts writing, the second head is in contact with the tape until the tape gets to this position here. That's important. That extra tape surface area, which is still being written to on normal 8mm cameras, is not used to write video. It's a reserved area of the tape. That reserved area is for the doubleable stereo PCM soundtrack. And this is one of the few decks that had the capability of recording and playing, in addition to the analog hi-fi stereo sound that's laid down along with the video on an FM carrier. It has the ability to record and play the PCM soundtrack and dub a digital stereo soundtrack after the fact. And again, it's one of the few decks that can do it. And what's gone wrong with this one is one that goes wrong with all of these decks, and that is there's a little gear that cracks on the take-up hub and causes the machine to eat tapes. And I'll show you that gear that is cracked on here. I've positioned the gear in such a manner that you can see the crack. You see the little crack that's formed right down in right there? There's the little crack in that gear. And what that causes is, as the tape is rotating, it will cause the tape to get eaten. And I'll show you what it does. This machine actually still plays, and if I don't go into fast forward mode, it will play a tape. But if I try to go into fast forward, it's a disaster. So when we load a tape, the tape threads up, as you'll see, and now you can appreciate the greater than 180 degree wrap. You can see the guidepost there and there. When it goes into play, no problem. If I didn't have this fan running in the background trying to keep cool in my workshop here, you'd hear it going tick, tick, tick. If I go into forward search, it'll actually go into forward search. You see the tape jumping here? If I try to go into full fast forward, which I'll do just to show you what happens, and I'll just do it for a second because it's going to damage this tape. That's what happens. When you try to go into full speed, that gear actually, the pendulum gear actually disengages and it stops working, and then you end up with a mess of tape, which now I'm going to have to spool this back. What I'm going to try and do on this is I've got another machine. I've got an EVS7000. I don't know whether the gear is cracked on it or not. I'm hoping that it's not, and I'm going to try and take the hub off the EVS5000 and replace this one here. But before I take this one apart, let's get the EVS5000 up on the bench so we can disassemble the mechanism and actually take the gear off of that and make sure that that gear itself isn't damaged. It's a very, very common problem on these things. If I could find a replacement hub, I would replace it. I have been searching for over a year at all of the parts departments that I've been able to contact, and I've been told the same thing on all of them, that the part is no longer available. And that was through Sony Canada, Sony USA, and I've tried a few other parts distributors. I could probably find another deck, but there's a chance that that's going to be the same fault. This has already been changed twice on this deck when I had this deck in service. So this will be the third time that this part has failed. It just seems to be an ongoing issue with this particular design and this type of gear, and they all crack. Anyway, let's get the EVS5000 apart here and see whether I can actually salvage the part out of it. Looking at this gear, it looks like this one may have been cracked too, and someone tried to fix this thing. It looks like someone's tried to melt it, and that might be why this one won't go into play mode, because on the bottom of these gear there's a little magnet, and that's used for the rotation detectors, and any heat applied anywhere near the gear will demagnetize the little thin magnet layer that's underneath it and cause it not to read the Hall device. So maybe that's why this one's not working anyway. Let's get this part right out of this machine so that I can actually physically have it in my hand and inspect it. So the first thing we need to do is we just need to remove the front cover. So there's a couple little catches along the top and the sides, and the front panel will pull off. It is connected by a ribbon cable that we will have to disconnect, otherwise we could break the front panel connector, and it's down here. I'm just going to flip this little circuit board out of the way so that I can undo this connector. And it should just pull out, I believe. Yeah, just pull straight up. Now I've got the front panel off, I can now go ahead and remove the front loading mechanism. It should be held in place by a couple screws. So I have to get my number 0 special Walkman screwdriver. So we'll just take out these screws here. These hold the cassette housing assembly in. Here somewhere too. Nope. Just pop out. Oh, maybe one more. Might be one more down here. There we go. 3 screws. And now we can see the mechanism a little more clearly. This is the gear that I'm after. Camera back here. This is the gear that cracks. And as you can see, it looks like someone's tried to repair this gear right here. To take it out, I actually have to take out this little bracket here. So there's 2 screws to take this bracket out. And now I can just pull this little brake lever back, and the unit should just lift away. Got to release both of these brakes. Release that one and this one here at the same time, and then this should just lift off just like that. There's the gear that's got a crack in it, and this one here looks like somebody has tried to heat that up. That happened before I obtained this machine. This is a machine I bought for parts as I'm trying to fix the other one. So someone's been into this. So let's see if we can separate this. This is the magnet down here that sits over. There's a Hall effect sensor right there. And this little magnet on here rotates, and of course someone putting heat to this has probably demagnetized that, and that might be why this machine's going into shutdown, or there's another fault. This machine, when you try to put it into fast forward or rewind, it goes into immediate shutdown. It'll go into play, but if you try to fast forward or rewind, it's going into immediate shutdown. So it may be this has been damaged by somebody else. Looks like they may have tried to repair this. I can get my magnifier out here and take a look at it. Looks like somebody may have stuck a soldering iron or something up to it to try and keep the gear from cracking, which is unfortunate, but oh, there's the magnet there. Actually, that may be where the damage is. I just separated the gear from the actual hub, and the magnet's actually here. So the magnet, actually, that's what holds these together. So the magnet's not damaged, which is good. That's what holds it. That's what gives you your slip force. This is a metal disc, and this magnet on the top portion here is what gives you your torque, your tension. So that's good. So this is probably going to be okay. And that brings another reason why I think these stupid things crack. Is the gear itself it's just a ring. It's actually pressed onto this metal plate. I think what happens on these things is just through thermal expansion, the metal expands. And maybe if these units are in a, sitting in a stack, and mine was sitting at the bottom of a stack of equipment when I was using it, I think probably what happens is that it overheats, and the metal ring expands, and of course the plastic isn't going to expand, it's going to crack. So that may have been what breaks these things. But I know that I've seen, literally, I've changed dozens of these hubs. When you buy the hub, it comes as a complete assembly like that. It's not just the gear, it's the whole hub. But I've changed, over my career, I changed dozens of them, and the other deck, it's been changed a few times. So now I've got the part out of this machine. We can put this machine aside for now. I will be putting it back together when I'm done. I'll put the other part back into this one just so that at least it's a complete machine. But for now, we'll just put all the parts that came out of this machine into a little box so I don't lose them. And then I'll put this machine back together after I change the part to the other one. Now we have to do the same on this one. We have to take off the front panel as well. And it just pops off again. There, it just kind of hung up a bit. On the EVS7000, there are no cables that be disconnected because it's got a separate circuit board. But we still have to remove the cassette housing so that we have easy access to the mechanism below. Same thing, there'll be a couple screws that hold it in. This one may have a few more screws on it because it's a slightly different design. But the parts themselves, the take-up hub I believe is the same. Pretty sure it's the same. This video almost ended in disaster as my memory card had run out just as I was going to start taking out the front loading mechanism. But we have to take out the same type of screws on this one. There's one screw here and two more on this side. And one more back here. And people have asked me, where do you get one of these screwdrivers? And my answer is, I have no idea. I was issued the screwdriver when I worked for the Sony Corporation. It was I guess it's a size number 0, but it's actually a special size. It's a size 0, but it's not. I guess it's a metric size number 0 because I've had size number 0 Phillips and they don't fit these little metric screws the same way as the Sony engineering screwdriver did. So I've had this thing I've had this since 1984. When I left the Sony Corporation, this screwdriver was in my pocket when I walked out the door and I totally forgot about it. Oops. So much for I shall not steal from my employer. Oh well, I consider it a departing gift, considering that Sony was so nice to me when I worked for them. Actually, I had no issues with the Sony Corporation when I worked for them. They did offer me a job. They just offered me a job in Winnipeg. And I wasn't prepared to relocate, so because my job at the Vancouver Service Center was coming to a close, they gave me an option to go and work for a warranty depot, which I ended up doing for 20 years. Okay, so you can see the crack in this gear here. I think we'll just take the base off this gear and we'll put this other gear onto it. And then we can start reassembling this machine. Again, we have to bring the brake assembly out and release this other brake assembly, and then it should just drop in place. Just like that. And then we can put the retaining bracket back in. This retaining bracket actually does two things. It also releases the tape spool locks on an 8mm tape. That goes into here and releases the spindle locks that stop the tape spindles from turning. As you can see, these units were very, very easy to work on. So when you took your deck into Sony or to a service center and the service technician charged you $175 labor to change the tape hub and told you it was hours and hours of work to do it, now you know how much he was ripping you off, because as you can see, to change that tape hub is just a couple of screws and a few minutes of work. So we'll put the screws back in. Okay, we go to tape. We'll see whether we fix the problem. Play. Oh, that might have been the damaged portion of the tape. It looks like we may have a bit of a problem on this. Look at this. It's tape is running down the pinch roller, so we may have a tension problem on here. I think we have a tension problem on this. We definitely have a tension problem. So I got to take this mechanism apart again. It may be that there may be a washer missing from this thing, and it's too close to the magnet. It's got too much pull for whatever reason, so let's just pull this apart again and see why. Whoops, where's my eject button? Eject. So we'll take this apart again and take a look at it. I think probably what the problem is when someone tried to fix this thing, there might be something that's just a little bit of dragging up against the hub, and it's applying just a little bit too much tension. So I'm just going to see if I can maybe sand that down a little bit, because it appears that there's just a little bit too much tension, and that's pulling on the tape enough to cause it to start riding down the pinch roller. If I can get that tension under control, I can probably make this machine work. Actually, this may be the problem here. There's a little spacer here that spaces out the difference between the two bases, and we'll try that and see if that works, because that will adjust the tape tension. If not, we can always try 2 washers. Okay, I've put it on with both washers together now. It just gives a little more bit of a space, which will drop the tension down. Putting go into play. There we go. I'll raise the camera up so you guys can see what's going on here. I'm almost out of battery, so I gotta make this quick. Okay, we'll go to fast forward or play search. No more eating the tape. Full search. And fast forward. And that's where the tape was spilling like crazy before. Now I can go into full fast forward on this without it firing up. All I need to be able to do is to play tapes and not have it chew them up. But at least now I've extended the life of this machine a little bit. If I ever find one of these complete assemblies, I'm going to buy one. But that's how you change the hub on an EVS7000, or for that matter an EVS5000 or an EVS. I think the 2000 was the same as well. The 3000 was a different transport. But the 2000, the 5000, and the 7000 all use the same transport. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you in the next one.